Well, greetings, one and all. It's me, Robert Phoenix. We are back for another edition of the Astro Weather. And behind me, I have sunrise over sunny San Padre Island here in or Padre Island, whatever it's called. I'm here. I'm in Texas. I've been here for how long? 12 years. I still have time struggle with places. This is a sunrise from the coast down here in Texas. It's a Texas sunrise. All right, let's see. Who is into his house? We got our man DJ MC, who was busy working the chat last night over on Old Port, Florida. What's going on, brother Mike? Deborah Wheeler checking in. There she is, the pebbly one, Pedrita. Good to see you, Lotta. Mary Lee's here. Christina Jerzyk. What's happening, Christina? The Empress of South Jersey is here. Jackie Delario. To Robert, I like Empress. My middle sister may be a triple Taurus, so she's the queen, right? So you can hold down the Empress side of things. Melissa Stanton, what's going on, Melissa? Florida checking in. Beth Berry, double B. Melissa Stanton she's got some motivation. She's motivated it. She baked a chocolate cake this morning. Very impressive. Susie G, what's going on, Queen of Hearts? Good to see you. As always, hope you're on the mend. Cameron's girlfriend meetup next week. Getting the house ready. If she has any tattoos, you got to tell your son to drop her. You say, Cameron, I know she seems like a nice girl, but those tattoos have to go. You should make that a prenup. It's just to get all the tattoos. No, I'm just kidding. There she is, the lovely and talented one. The best holistic dentist in Austin, Texas, maybe the entire United States. Dr. Joan S. The king of thrash. I would call thrash. What we call Steve's style of playing. It's not quite thrash. It would be something akin to feedback, thunder, rolling thunder. Zerolith the Immortal is with us this morning. Maya Rose. Buenos dias, Maya. Maria de Ange. Looks like Marine Le Pen is taking care of business in France. I watched one of her speeches the other day. Boy, she doesn't mince any words, does she? Man, down the wombat hole, you got that right. The slippery one is the star of the day. And of course, we all know that's one Julian Assange. Julian Assange. Nora Rashid, the queen of speed, jamming on her way to another record-setting day of sales. Setting them up and knocking them down. Liddy Lou is here. Good vibes for a great meeting. Yes, indeed. There's a man, Tom Jordan from the Sunroom. What's happening, Tom? Athena, Krista Royce. Hi, Krista. Kelly B. How you feeling, Kelly? Are you getting a little hydration today? Meow meow. Getting ready for work. You're going to be driving. Keep your eyes on the old days. They had the gumballs on the rooftop. They were always so easy. Now these cop cars are so fucking camouflaged. Right? They're all black now, and they barely have police sort of etched out in sort of this light gray lettering, and they don't have anything on their roof anymore. They have those lights, the strip that's at the top of the front window. Like they're so camouflaged. What took them so long? I guess technology. I guess that's it. Craving the beach. I hear you, Curtis. I could use a little beach time myself. Janine's here. Brandy's checking in, and the temperature in Graham, Texas this morning is a sultry 81 degrees. Magic Cat with the ICK is with us today, misbehaving too. Mary Grether, hi Mary. Sandy D. Let's see, Interstellar Cosmic Conversations on the ISCC. Rainbows and butterflies. Monica Farrow, good morning from southeastern Louisiana. Let me see what that is. Southeastern. So that's kind of what by like Mississippi. Is that right? You kind of down there by Mississippi. You know, I was going through some family documents last night, and I found my father's birth certificate from, well, obviously, but I was more interested in his father, and who I know very little about. And I found out that I found where he was born, and I found out his trade, his occupation, and his occupation was listed as electrician. Electrician, and I never knew that about my paternal grandfather. You know how they say things skip a generation, right? No electrician. Let's see, Patty Judas. Rich's mother is here today. All right. Sharon Lewis, oil of wild oregano, Robert. I'm doing okay, Sharon. I think I'm almost over whatever the chess demon landed inside of me. Lynn's checking in from Panama. Panama. Lynn, if you haven't heard Panama by Van Halen, please do yourself a favor. Just listen to it. One of these days, turn it on real loud in your casa, and get ready to shake your ass. Esperanza Venstaro, she's with us. Platinum Happiness 2024. How's that hip? How's that? Scott Jerzik, what's happening? We got a Scott and a Christina sighting. Claire is here. My ex, me and Cameron are tattoo-free family. You must be psychic, Robert. Susie G. Let's not let the cat get out of bed. Shanda Sparkles Astrology from Padre Island. That's what I'm talking about right there. That's it. There you go. Shanda, that's your sunrise right there. How about that? Blackened death metal often. Blackened death. Wow. So there's black metal, there's death metal, there's blackened death metal. When I think of blackened death metal, I think of like Cajun. You know, like they blacken like blackened salmon, blackened prawns. That would be kind of a cool genre, like Cajun death metal. Wouldn't that be cool? I mean, it's an unexplored musical territory, Steve. Yeah, check that out. Warlanda, I have finished my coffee. I raise it to you though, empty and all. Catherine wants to join the party. Someone's knocking at the door. Do me a favor, let him in. You know that song? You ever listen to that song by Paul McCartney? Someone's knocking at the door. Someone's ringing the bell. You know what that song is about? It's about people sitting around the house and they're fucking high as a kite. And nobody wants to get up to answer the door. I listened to that song one day and I'm like, oh, Paul McCartney wrote this either when he was stoned or it's about the experience of being stoned. And do me a favor, open the door and let him in. I'm not getting up. I'm too high. Listen to that song. You'll know exactly what I'm talking about. Curtis Moonflower, tattoo free and thriving. I remember there was a time when I was young may have been about 26. And I had a friend who was an Aquarian, and he was, I think he had a tattoo, and I think he was going to get another tattoo. So this was 1986, and tattoos were not in vogue. Like people really didn't get tattoos back then. And I actually considered getting a tattoo because nobody was getting them. I'm like, no, nobody's getting getting tattoos. So maybe I'll get a tattoo. I'm glad I did. And if you have a tattoo, I'm not judging you. There's no judgment from me to your tattoo. Just not for me. Not for me. Let's see. Richard is rhyming today. Who's Richard? Who's Richard? I have been called Richard before. I've been called Richard. I think I've been called Roger. Mostly Richard instead of Robert. Soul Traveler, checking in. Double B, Barbara Boots. She's with us before she runs off in her busy day with her errands. Kelly B's feeling much better. Good to hear that. Let's see. I'm slow this morning. What was the deal with tats? Some of us have lots of them. I got no problem with tats on people. I am not a judgmental tat person. I, however, choose to remain tat. That's just me. Right. I was just messing around with Susan. Look at we're in Orlando. She's like, he's fucking with my tats. But he fucks with my tats. Look, here's my final word on tats. If they are artistic and they are, I would say strategically placed, hey, body art, right? Me personally, I just think that that it's become almost de rigueur, right? And then what I see is just people that are like so tatted up to the point where like they're covering their body, and it's like what is behind that, right? And especially heavy facial tattoos. Like, what are you trying to hide? Right. And I'm talking about enormous body paint. So, Orlando, we love you. We love your tattoos unconditionally. Oh, Liddy Lou. Oh, look at that. I froze already. God damn it. I'll put my language. Hang in there. I will be right back to talk more smack about tattoos. Give me 1 second. Okay, we're back. Exactly, Orlando, what Robert said. Yes, I've got. Let's see what else we have here. Scrubby says, I don't like to wear the same clothing. Julie said, why would I want something on me that I can't wash off? Different strokes for different folks. Tattoos, we don't really know the long-term effects of having synthetic ink on our skin. I wouldn't risk it. Curtis Moonflower, I love magic marker tattoos. You remember you used to buy a bubble gum and they'd have those little lick-em tattoos put on your skin with those? I think the coolest tattoos are like those Japanese yakuza tattoos, or the Japanese kind of artsy tattoos that the Japanese people have. Those are cool. I like those. Those are interesting in cultural context. The old days, young people that got tattoos for the most part were either people in the military, mostly sailors, bikers, and people in prison. Those were the three people, or three classes that mostly got tattoos. Of course, there were other people. My father was a tattoo guy. In fact, he gave himself his own tattoo. He actually did it himself. He did what was it? I think it was a 3-leaf clover. Like he literally did it himself. My father was a very crafty guy. He could do shit like that. And then he had this other tattoo that he had that he didn't like. And he went to this guy named Lyle Tuttle in San Francisco, who is considered to be like one of the great tattoo artists of all time. And of course, he was a Leo, so he had this lion tattooed on his arm. I gotta say, it was a good fucking looking lion, right? Like Lyle Tuttle was a great tattoo artist, and he did a fantastic job covering up my father's other shitty tattoo. Okay, let's just do a little bit of business here, and then we'll get rolling. Of course, hit the bell, hit the like. Please hit the like. The like is important. I probably don't stress that enough. Hit the like, sound the bell, and subscribe. Those are easy, right? Those are really easy things to do. You don't have to spend a dime to do that, right? You can join locals and support the show, which is always appreciated. And of course, you can buy me a cup of coffee. All those links are listed in the show notes, and perhaps one of the mods will drop them in. Of course, we'll talk about True Hemp Science when the time comes. Thank you, and let's get going. All right. So away we go. We are officially here in this part of the hemisphere in holiday season now, right? We are ramping up to the 4th of July. The 5th of July always used to make me sad. I was always sad on the 5th of July. All the remnants of all the old fireworks on the streets made me sad. Melancholy. I'm not sure what that's about. Anyway, Mercury is in Leo. And I don't know why I got all these transits in here. Because, well, that's where we are. Anyway, Mercury's in Leo. And here we go. This is the opposition. The opposition we were talking about earlier in the week. Yeah, it's one of those things where what's said can't be unsaid. Choose your words wisely. Or, throw caution to the wind and deal with the consequences. Either way, right? Either way. One of the things we're going to talk about today, over on 15 minutes, is the rhetoric machine and how we're getting all these incredibly dramatic pronouncements about Trump and electing Trump and re-electing Trump. And it is really becoming, well, it's beyond the point of unbearable. It's gotten to the point where it's like where does strategy and talking points and propaganda and mind control entrainment meet? Like where is the event horizon with those two? Because that's where we are right now, and it's going to get worse. That's what we're going to be talking about over on. Everybody on the so-called left is now taking the anti-Trump rhetoric to an entirely new level, including, for the first time, I wouldn't say it's the first time, but the first time with many voices seemingly united, calling for his death. the death of Donald Trump. I've also heard that they're calling for the death of Supreme Court justices. Like, we are now entering into this next phase of the Purple Revolution, which I've been talking about for a long time now. And this next phase is about death, right? It's so when these unhinged people start talking about things in this, like, okay, I'll give you an example. A long time ago, maybe not that long ago, there was a series of movies called The Purge. And the whole idea behind The Purge was that once a year on Halloween, anything goes. It was kind of like an extended version of the Day of the Archons or the Hour of the Archons, a Star Trek episode, where for an hour each day, the town goes berserk and they rape and abuse people. Then after the hour is over, they reclaim their civility. And I'm convinced that The Purge is based on that Star Trek episode. But The Purge was a series of movies where for one night a year on Halloween, it was like open season. And it was sort of like this, I don't know, psychic bloodletting in some ways. But those movies, looking back on them, were all about, I wouldn't say they were predictive programming. They were just more like programming. And so if you see, and eventually the Purge movies kind of morph into not just this night of wanton violence and anarchy and catharsis, but ultimately revolution. So you have a bunch of people going to movie theaters and indulging in The Purge. And I'm convinced that when you leave a movie theater, unless there's closure with the movie, that you take the spirit of the movie with you. So you have millions of people who at some level have this program kind of running around inside of them. And it feels like we were inching up on The Purge during the summer of Floyd. And everything that I've been hearing over the last 72 hours, it's almost like there's this overcompensation. I don't want to get into it too much. I don't want to save the show. But there's this overcompensation for the disastrous showing of Joe Biden. So instead of, and there are people in the Democratic Party, left, whatever, who are aware of, look, I'm just pissed that they all rubber stamped this guy. From day one, he was incompetent. From day one. If you saw him on the campaign trail, you knew that this guy was teetering on the edge of senility, right? So it's completely disingenuous for that group of people to all of a sudden wake up and smell the coffee and say, we got to do something about this. No, you fucking ran that guy. You crossed your eyes and crossed your fingers and crossed just about everything else you had that he could make it through for the next 4 years based on whatever kind of model that you had to set it up so that at times he would appear competent and at other times appear completely incompetent. Well, I'm not sure you really get to experience the human cry. Like, I think you should fucking admit that you made a mistake. I think that would be the most healing thing for the country, is to admit that they made a mistake. That's a discussion. What I'm talking about, though, is that there's this overcompensation now for Biden's failings, right? And it all has to do with this Supreme Court ruling, which was stupid because presidents have immunity anyway. They have immunity. So It's just it's the way it is. So they were just ruling on something that was pre-existing, and they've turned that ruling into a war crime. And that's what I'm talking about here. So this is that Mercury-Pluto opposition. And we're just going to hear more and more and more about this, especially today. You'll hear all of these not so veiled threats juxtaposed with this idea that we're celebrating the 4th of July and the birth of the country, right? And what they'll try to do is they'll try to snatch back the flag. And they'll try to just invert everything so that the Biden administration in the last 4 years are the epitome of true American values. And that's not the case at all. And I'm not even here like, shoveling coal into the trunk. I'm just telling you, right? This is the energy right now. And on just a personal, everyday kind of level, I think people are very quick with that Mercury and Leo to say whatever they want to say. And the thing about Mercury and Leo and Mercury and Sag it is that there's such a surety with like pronouncement and articulation about a position. There's just no doubt whatsoever that this is right or this is the case. In some cases that could be true, right? But I would say a bit more of a measured approach. But every now and then, you gotta say something that stirs things up a bit. Like the only thing that I caution here is with this Mercury Pluto opposition is that usually what's said can't be unsaid. So just keep that in mind. Right? That's all you gotta do. Keep it in mind. What else is Mercury doing? It's in a weird sextile with Uranus, which is out of sign, but because by degree it's still there. That's interesting. I mean, I think that should invoke an original approach. It's an interesting transit, again, by degree. So you want to think outside the box. You want to think creatively. That, I think, is certainly rewarded with Mercury today. And then we also have the trine with Neptune. Again, it's we have these weird kind of out of sign aspects that Mercury's involved in today. It's kind of an interesting synthesis in a lot of ways. So when you add this Mercury with fire with earth, this Mercury with fire with water, there's a kind of a unique alchemy, I think. And then you have the opposition Pluto. So we're engaged in earth, fire, earth, water, and air all through Mercury. That's interesting. It's an interesting combination of aspects. The trine with Neptune, I think, is creative. I think it's a creative trine. Imbue your speech with creativity. That's one of the things that we've lost touch with in a lot of ways, is the use of language to color our experience and describe events in our lives. We've really become dumbed down in that regard. English is the language of economics, and by default, it ultimately sort of settles into that world, right? I mean, there can be flowery prose and all the things that go along with any language, but English is the language of economics. But with the Mercury-Neptune trine, I would say strive to be creative in how you express yourself today. There's also kind of a psychic element with that Mercury-Neptune trine. But again, how it's expressed through Leo is going to be different than it would be, say, in Cancer. It would be a very different kind of connection and expression. But even with Mercury and Cancer trining Neptune, you may not share what you're experiencing or intuiting with other people. Or if you do, you might only share it with people that you really trust. Mercury and Leo doesn't give a shit, right? So maybe you can tell a stranger their fortune in the checkout line at the market today. Oh, that's a very interesting tattoo you have. Would you mind if I uh, did a symbolic deconstruction of your tattoo? But it's creative, right? It's creative. We strive. I mean, I think as humans, we need to strive to be creative. I mean, that's really, to me, that is the human function, to be creative. The lowest common denominator is that we give birth to children. I mean, that's a creative act. So I would say look for creative speech to be a part of your regimen today. Let's see what else we have here. Excuse me. I also think before I move off of Mercury, since it's right on the ascendant, I seem to be talking a lot about it. There's a lot of hyperbole. There is a lot of hyperbole in the air. Lots of hyperbole. Lots of hype. Don't believe all of it. Let's see. What else we have? So we have the sun now deeply into that second decan, which we talked about on Sunday night, moving into a close trine with Saturn. And I just feel like this is all about stability, right? Stability, being grounded, having a sense of pragmatism, realism, right? This is all very much rewarded. Venus is coming into a tighter trine with Neptune now. So I think that there's also a potential for greater kindness. We could all use a little bit more of that, especially, where it's needed. Like, do you cast pearls before swine? No, you don't. But I really like this Venus Neptune trine. I mean, we live in such a harsh fucking world, right? Everything is harsh. There's so much rhetoric. There's so much divide and conquer, right? We here with Venus, as it again, over the next few days, it moves into that closer trine with more of a sense of I wouldn't call it forgiveness, but there's just ease of relating, right? There's not as many rules or judgment about relating. And again, I think it's a great aspect for socializing, and particularly tomorrow. Now, we do have this Moon Jupiter conjunction, at least early here in the day, which is a little bit of overindulgence and a little bit of oversharing. But that's okay. Saturn's tempering a little bit. Right? There's a little bit of a Saturn temper to this Jupiter Moon conjunction. I almost called it Jupiter. So it's an interesting dynamic, right? Because Jupiter wants to expand how we're feeling. How we're feeling is mental. When the moon is in Gemini, we want to talk about our feelings. We want to talk it out. If anybody has moon in Gemini or moon in the third house, that they just have to process their feelings by talking about their feelings. Nothing wrong with that, right? The square is also kind of an interesting aspect to add into that. Again, I feel like it tempers a little bit. It's like, because there could be a tendency to overshare a bit. So I actually kind of like this square. The moon, of course, is going to move through Gemini. So by tonight and then tomorrow, it's going to be into more of a square with Neptune, which for the 4th of July, I think make sure your guests have a designated driver. That's number one. I would be really cautious with alcohol on the 4th of July, just in general, right? With that Moon Neptune square, especially if you're with family. Unless you're willing to open up the vault for the family secrets, I would be very judicious around the intake of alcohol. Um, it also, to me, again, this Moon Jupiter conjunction square Saturn is kind of like a fact check on propaganda. Today feels like a propaganda heavy day. Like lay it on thick. And even tomorrow during the 4th, right, they'll lay it on thick, whatever the propaganda is. Um, I don't know if there's a risk involved with this 4th of July. I really thought it was going to go off in 2020. It's like, oh man, they've been burning shit down all summer. And now it's 4th of July. Like this is their symbolic moment in reckoning. And it didn't happen. It did not happen. Could it happen this 4th of July? Well, with Mercury Pluto opposition, sure. Moon Neptune square, quite possibly. Right. So the one thing with the Moon Neptune square is that there's always the possibility for finding somebody else to blame for one's emotional troubles or woes. It's always somebody else's fault, and it feels like we've really become captive to that kind of mindset. It's always somebody else's fault. No, it's like nobody wants to take responsibility. Um, Mars is looking pretty solid all the way around. I like, yeah. Normally, that Mars and Taurus is just so obstinate and even slow, but it's not really being hampered by any. You've got that Mars sextile to Saturn. So if you need to pack in one more good day of work before you, theoretically take tomorrow off, it's a good day to do that. Really good day. And let's say you don't have a big 4th of July celebration planned. I'm telling you, that Mars Saturn trine is really good for work around your house and getting things done. And that energy will go all the way up through the weekend. So just consider this a long weekend. So if you have projects and it's not too hot, I think this is a good time to really tackle those projects, and they go easier and faster even, especially when you have focus. I think that helps with Mars in Taurus. And then the sun coming in and sextiling Mars even closer gives that Mars more energy, right? Just gives it more energy. I'd say I like the aspects today for the most part. Just watch out for the heaping spoonfuls of propaganda and the volatility of making these pronouncements that are absolute and very dramatic. Be prepared for the drama. Okay, let's get into our star of the day, our True Hemp Science star of the day. And as you know, all you got to do until I don't know how long this sale is going to go on for, but just go to truehempscience.com and type in July 4, and you'll get 20% off your order, which is a great deal. And Chris doesn't do this very often. So I highly recommend you take advantage of being able to do that. And that's truehempscience.com, July 4. I think $150 more, you'll still get free shipping. And there's always a 30-day money-back guarantee. And a lot of you have responded to the generous offer, which is great, which is really great. So you support Chris, you support True Hemp Science, you support your body, you support your health, and ultimately you support the show as well. And thank you for doing it. Today's star of the day is none other than the international man of mystery, Julian Assange. Here we go. I posted this on Twitter. Who is Julian Assange? Julian Assange is anyone you want him to be. You know, and what do I mean by that? Well, he has Neptune on the ascendant, right? So he's a Sag rising. There's Neptune, which is exalted, by the way, in Sagittarius. And then right behind it, there's Jupiter and Scorpio. I've Neptune on the ascendant is a really interesting aspect in the chart. People that have it at one point in time in their life, perhaps maybe even more than one point, they play the role of scapegoat. Like that is the nature of Neptune on the ascendant. They get blamed for other people's misdeeds or sins through no fault of their own. Right? That's one version of Neptune on the ascendant. Yeah, it's not another version, but it goes along with the package. And then Neptune on the ascendant is almost like a mirror, and that person can be anything that other people see them or want them to be. Right? So Julian Assange with Neptune on his ascendant can be a saint. Other people can view him as a martyr, which I guess isn't sainthood. Or they could view him as a hero, or they could view him as a traitor, or they can view him as a honey trap or a limited hang. I mean, that is the nature of Neptune. So there are all of these things would describe Julian Assange. And they would not be inaccurate with Neptune on his ascendant. And with Jupiter here, it just makes it even bigger. Right? It just expands all of those perceptions or the projection of his identity. And there's a lot of secrets in Julian Assange's chart. He has the sun in the 8th house in Cancer. It's very difficult to get to know people who have sun in the 8th house or sun in the 12th house. It doesn't mean you can't, but in order to really understand them, you have to meet them in the 8th house. And usually that is going to be circumstances that a lot of people just aren't going to have access to. Right? Like a lot of times the 8th house is the bedroom, or a lot of times the 8th house is, the boardroom where, decisions are made and power is wielded, but it's behind the scenes, it's behind the curtain. I mean, this is how 8th house people operate, right? And so I think he astrologically he clearly has the stuff of being a spy, clearly, with the sun in the 8th house. There's secrets. There's secrets around who he is, his origination, which is all true, right? You go into his origin story, and it's just very weird. He's got 3 fathers by the age of 7. And they're not just your run-of-the-mill fathers. They're all quite different. And so they're all influential in their own way, right? So as far as Assange as a person goes, how much do we really know about him? Well, we know what we know by Neptune and what we project onto him. And there are people who say, well, this guy was a traitor. He gave away government secrets. And there are other people who say, well, he's a hero because he provided the apparatus for people to disclose things that would not normally be able to be disclosed. And I've said my piece about Assange already. So I'm trying to be agnostic on the astrological front. Now he has this Mars in Aquarius, and that's in the 4th house. So when you go into his origin story and you look at how he grew up and where he grew up, it's weird, right? He's part of that Anne Byrne Hamilton community for 3 years of his life. and that's the fourth house, and it's Aquarian. It's like it's a community, and Mars in the fourth house is not the easiest placement for Mars. You know, if you've got Mars in the fourth house, you better be in real estate or a builder because you need to use that energy, right, to work on your home or other homes. Uh, I, you know, it also kind of fits in some ways Assange's sort of nomadic existence, right? He's everywhere but nowhere. And ultimately, the Mars in the fourth house is violent, right? There's violence with Mars in the fourth house. So did he experience violence as a youth, violence in the home? And Mars in Aquarius can be quite cruel, by the way. It's not always cruel, but it can be. And I would say that Julian Assange probably did experience some degree of cruelty growing up. That's part of his roots. And what's interesting is that with the fourth house shapes us, right? It shapes our our values. And I think whatever he went through, when he was young, right, shaped his values. And Mars in Aquarius is quite rebellious. So everything that he experienced when he was young would ultimately contribute to the person he became, or whatever he became, or whoever this person is now. Right. And he has the true node in Aquarius. And it's not quite in that really tight conjunction. Now, again, I am playing agnostic astrologer here. And I could totally see with the true node in Aquarius, somebody starting something like WikiLeaks. I mean, it makes total sense. Or being a part of WikiLeaks. It's very third house. It's about communication. It's Aquarian, so it's disruptive. I have no problem with that. That's the chart, right? We try to stay true to the chart. But who he's attached to and how all that is fleshed out, that's a different story. You can see WikiLeaks in this chart. It's right here. It's right here. He has hardly any Earth in this chart. He's got Pluto at the end degrees of Virgo. And what does he have? He's got an asteroid. And that's it. He's got what? What's the asteroid? Pallas. So Julian Assange is not grounded at all. And I think that people that don't have a lot of Earth in their chart, and if I step on someone's toes, in advance, I apologize, or I do it with a disclaimer, is that I think that people that don't have a lot of Earth in their chart don't always understand the consequences of what they do because they're not grounded at all. They're either ideological and there's a ton of air, and so they're in their heads, or they're conceptual, or there's a ton of water, so everything is really emotional, right? Or there's fire, a lot of fire, and everything is just kind of off the cuff and sort of a slash and burn. But the lack of Earth is alarming in his chart. So we look to the Earth houses. Well, he's got nothing in the 10th. He's got nothing in the 2nd, and he's really got nothing in the 6th, except for that Pallas, which we talked about in Taurus. Now, let's talk about the Mars-Neptune square and the Mars-Jupiter square. The Mars-Neptune square, which I've talked about before, is, I think it is an aspect of addiction. And the reason why it's an aspect of addiction is because people who have Mars-Neptune squares often have terrible times with self-esteem, and their confidence and belief that they can handle things in their life gets wrecked, right? And so, in order for them to cope and to muster up enough courage or enough willpower, they will indulge in some degree of addiction, whatever that addiction is, so that theoretically it fills this massive void that's been created by the Mars Neptune square. Like, I'm just not good enough. Everything I do turns to shit, right? Everything. So this is an important piece in Assange's chart and cannot be overlooked. Right? So there's something about Julian Assange in his personality that he's overcompensating for, right? And maybe it has to do with everything that he experienced at home, right? The three fathers who buzz in and out of his life, right? And maybe really this is all about those relationships. And WikiLeaks is just some kind of mechanism to right those wrongs or to somehow find his own voice or courage. And I'm speculating a bit here, right? But I also feel like there's a little bit of the traitor with this Mars Neptune square, and Jupiter just makes it bigger. And I think that it'll be interesting to see what happens to Assange, whoever this person is now, post prison, because it's almost as if the myth became bigger than the man, and that is very Neptunian on the ascendant as well. Something happened to him between the age of 12 and 14, clearly during childhood, which impacted his life significantly. So whatever happened to him during that time, that is his wound. And what's also interesting is that the true node is hitting Chiron in Assange's chart, right? So he cuts a deal, or whoever this guy is cuts a deal. It's interesting. So basically, everything that's been collected in WikiLeaks has to go away. That's part of the deal. And again, it's very hard to truly understand his motivation because he's hidden. You know, he was hidden from the public for a long time, for wherever he was, whether it was in some consulate or some prison. Again, it's very hard with Neptune on the ascendant to get a handle on Assange. I'm just telling you. Right? So what you believe in him may not be true. And even some of my, uh, you know, perceptions or, my bits of evidence or breakdown, even those things with Neptune there, I might even have to question. That's just the nature of Neptune. He's a slippery character, as Down the Wombat Bowl said. Here's the father right there. That's Saturn. And Saturn Neptune opposition. I can't get this idea of the father out of Assange's chart, and that the three fathers, or his state-sponsored fathers along the way, play a very significant role. I also think it's interesting that there have been people in his life with Saturn here on the descendant in relationship that have been very steadfast and loyal to Assange, which doesn't surprise me. He has Venus in Gemini, right? And that's ingressing into the 8th house. Now, I had read something about that threesome that he had that basically landed him in hot water. And a lot of people, including myself at the time, believed that it was a setup. But apparently there was something much darker about that arrangement. And that even went away, right? But I'd read somewhere, I forget which blog it was, this was a pro-Julian Assange blog. This wasn't some hit piece. And the author intimated that he knew certain things about that experience that were not made public, and that it was much darker than people realize. I could see that with this Venus-Pluto square. right? I could totally see that with that Venus-Pluto square. And again, I can't claim to know what happened, but this was a very thorough blog piece, and it was not a Assange hit piece. And they said that what happened was more troubling than the public understands. Just saying, right? He does have that Venus-Mars trine, which, to a large extent can help him be quite popular. And people can get behind his cause, which we have seen as well. He's clearly rebellious. The Sun Uranus square, that's a fit, right? In a lot of ways for Assange. That makes sense. He's got Mercury in Cancer at ninth house. Again, from a WikiLeaks perspective, it fits, right? So the information has to come out somewhere. I think the key to it all is, who's behind it, what's behind it. At the end of the day, really, who is Julian Assange? And we may never know, right? We may never fully know or understand, like the layers and the depth and the complex relationships and all of them, right? And he will probably wind up being one of the more enigmatic people in history. And, whatever kind of story you want to pin on him, there's your Neptune on the ascendant. He also has Moon in Scorpio in the 12th house. I mean, if he was in prison, it makes sense, doesn't it? But the 12th house is his home. That's where he hangs his hat. He's a 12th house person with the Moon in Scorpio. This is not somebody who does well in public. Even though when the spotlight was on him, I don't think he minded. In fact, I think he kind of reveled in it. I think he saw himself as a bit of a rock star as all of this was going down. But at the end of the day, I would certainly question him still with this chart. And it really, the key is Neptune. He's not what he appears to be. And he can be anyone you want him to be. And he's really not very grounded at all in the story. I think he did make some enemies with Uranus and Pluto in the 11th house, but he also, I believe, what's the word I'm looking for? Fostered a lot of devotion, right? That's Pluto. That's Pluto in the 8th house, right? I'll be your friend to the end, sort of a thing. And clearly, he's in the chart, right? He's in the chart. Mercury sextile Pluto, secrets. And those secrets theoretically merging into the 9th house. I think what's also interesting is that the South Node, which is in Leo, and the 9th house is the house of publishing. And ultimately that was the business of WikiLeaks, was publishing state-sponsored secrets, right? So was that what he was supposed to do? I think, right, because he did it through the internet. He didn't teach a course on it, right? So he did it through the internet. He did it through the True Node in Aquarius in the 3rd house. He's in the chart. It's clear he's in the chart. And again, I would say that the biggest piece around all of this is that he's a slippery character. And he is everything you think he is, and he's not. Right? So there you go. There's your True Hemp Science star of the day. The state-sponsored shapeshifter, radical anarchist, information liberator, now a theoretical free man, Julian Assange. All right, that does it for today's show. Please join us over on 15 Minutes of Flame, where I'll be talking more about the inflammation, the inflammation of the the inflammation of information. That's what I'll be talking about. The inflammation of information and the social media and mainstream media accelerant that they are painting onto the Trump situation and the American landscape in general. All right. Thank you all for being here. I appreciate each and every one of you. Don't forget to hit the thumbs up on your way out the door. If you're interested in using my services as an astrologer, that's available as you click on the link. And don't forget, Darlena Watson's class starts on the 7th of July. If you still want to sign up, she's got some spots left. DarlenaWatson.com. Type in Phoenix, all capitals, and you get a $200 discount on your 7-week course, which includes 2 readings. Those are handwritten, well, typed. She doesn't write. That'd be kind of cool, you know, writing them out, cursive, and sending to you in a letter. That's old school. But she doesn't do that. But you get 2 readings with Darlena, plus 7 weeks of essential information around human design and astrology. So DarlenaWatson.com, get on over there. Phoenix is your $200 discount for the 7-week course. Remember, you have everything you need inside of you, and treat each other well. Treat each other well. Show a little kindness in the world. God bless you all. Love you all. I think we'll do a little 4th of July show tomorrow. Why not? Why not? I've done it before. And Friday, just to let you know, I think the forecast is going to be strictly on Rumble because Russ has things to say that may jeopardize my standing on YouTube. So you can follow us over on Rumble as well. Take good care. Love you all. Bye for now.